Welcome again, my fellow learners. I'm Mike Hayes, Editor-in-Chief of AI Super Campus Podcasts. You can see my young teammates behind me. I'm also co-host of the Super Intelligence Dialogues, where we demonstrate AI reason ability. We believe that none of us is as smart as all of us together. So together, we learn to think better, build better, and protect what matters most in the age of AI. Here now, my AI publicists to explain more.
You know, if you open up your email right now or just browse basically any modern startup's website, you are almost guaranteed to be hit by what feels like this tidal wave of flawless robotic perfection.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right. It's this sea of AI-generated corporate fluff. I mean, it sounds incredibly sophisticated, tossing around phrases like, synergy and next-generation optimization or paradigm shift.
Yeah, the classic buzzword.
Exactly. But when you actually stop and take a breath and read the sentence, it says absolutely nothing at all.
It's a polished, completely impenetrable wall of text. We can really think of it as the artificial monologue of the modern world. People are completely drowning in it. And honestly, it's just exhausting.
It really is.
Because you cannot build a human connection with a monologue, especially one that feels like it was engineered in a, sterile laboratory.
And I think that sheer exhaustion with the artificial monologue is exactly why our stack of notes for today's deep dive is just so completely wild.
It is definitely not your standard tech pitch, that's for sure.
No, not at all. So we are looking at a manifesto and a pitch created by Mike Hayes. He's the editor-in-chief of something called the AI Super Campus. But here's the real kicker. This is not a traditional slide deck.
Right.
It isn't some heavily edited PR-scrubbed proposal. It is literally an unedited raw dialogue between a human, Mike, and his AI co-author. And they are using this raw, slightly messy transcript as their actual pitch to win a $1 million Startup World Cup mentorship competition.
Which, is just an audacious move for anyone to make, let alone someone competing for $1 million prize.
Yeah, $1 million.
Exactly. Most founders in that position are going to polish their pitch until it shines like a mirror, right? They're desperately trying to hide the messy parts of their thought process. But this source material leans entirely into the mess.
It's fascinating.
For them, this radical transparency isn't a gimmick. It is the core of your argument. The process isn't just a means to an end. The process is the product itself.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack how this unedited chat actually works as a blueprint for what they are calling the AI generation of founders.
Yeah, and it's quite the blueprint.
We're going to explore how this manifesto merges the incredibly intuitive, almost, brutal communication style of Steve Jobs with the 2,300-year-old logic of Aristotle.
Quite the mashup.
Right. And supposedly, combining these two things is the secret to finding inner peace, building sustainable companies, and maybe, just maybe, shifting global stability.
I know it sounds like a massive leap, right? Going from how we talk about computers to global peace. But it all really starts with tearing down that wall of corporate fluff we just mentioned. It starts with the concept the text calls demystification.
Okay, let's get into that, because the text spends a significant amount of time analyzing Steve Jobs, specifically looking at how he communicated back when he was introducing microcomputers to a public that had absolutely no idea what they were.
Right, they were completely alien to most people.
Exactly. And the fascinating thing is that Jobs did the exact opposite of what most tech experts do today. He didn't walk on stage and try to sound like the smartest guy in the room. He actually stood there and called computers dumb.
Yeah, and think about the psychological mechanism behind that choice. Because when you, as a founder or a leader, are pushing a brand new, highly complex category of technology onto the public, the audience's default state is intimidation.
Oh, 100%.
They are inherently scared of what they don't understand. So if you walk out there adopting the posture of the expert or the salesman, talking down to them from a pedestal about proprietary algorithms and microprocessors, you aren't educating them. You are just reinforcing their intimidation.
You're basically making them feel stupid to make yourself look smart.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Jobs chose a completely different posture. He adopted the role of a peer. He conceptually stands next to the audience, looks at the machine with them and says, look, these things are exceptionally simple. They're just moving electrons around. They're really dumb, but they're really fast.
Wow.
By stripping away the mysticism and the jargon, he completely disarms the audience's fear. He gives them permission to understand it.
And he didn't stop at calling them dumb either. He used this brilliant historical anchor that the text calls the fractional horsepower analogy.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. Instead of trying to explain the mechanics of a microcomputer from scratch, he told a story about the electric motor.
Which is such a crucial technique. Because when you introduce something unprecedented, people do not have a mental filing cabinet for it, right? The information just bounces off. You have to build the cabinet for them first, using materials they already recognize.
So Jobs explains how early electric motors were these massive, terrifying things in factories. You had to physically bring your work to the motor. But eventually, some engineer figured out how to make a fractional horsepower motor, basically a tiny motor that could fit inside a household appliance.
Changing everything.
Exactly. Suddenly the power comes to you. It's in your kitchen. And then Jobs drops the payload. He doesn't say Apple makes microcomputers. He says Apple exists because we stumbled onto fractional horsepower computing.
And notice what happens mechanically when he does that.
Where?
It's a masterclass in inevitability.
Yeah.
He takes this bizarre, potentially scary new startup and anchors it to a historical shift the audience already understood and accepted as a good thing. It wasn't a risky new gadget anymore. It was just the logical, unavoidable next step of human history.
Okay, but here is where it gets a little bit terrifying for anyone listening who might be pitching a project or a startup anytime soon. Jobs didn't just simplify, he used radical candor.
Radical's the right word.
Because most founders get on stage and project total invulnerability, like, our product is flawless, our team is perfect, give us your money. But Jobs, he got on stage and said, if you've looked at computers today, they look like garbage. They look like a piece of shit. He openly admitted, we've blown it.
It acts as the ultimate trust weapon.
Wait, I have to stop here. Just imagine you are a founder asking for capital. Isn't it incredibly dangerous to stand on a stage in front of investors and admit things are garbage?
You'd think so, yeah.
I mean, I equate the typical modern startup pitch to a heavily filtered Instagram photo, right?
Oh, completely.
Everyone in the room knows it's a little bit fake, the numbers are a little optimistic, but we all just agree to play along with the illusion. Jobs is basically handing the audience a poorly lit, messy, behind-the-scenes Polaroid. Why on earth does that work?
Well, you're entirely right that it feels dangerous.
Yeah.
But it works precisely because everyone is exhausted by that filtered photo. When an audience hears someone selling total perfection, their defensive walls immediately shoot up.
That makes sense.
They start looking for the catch, the hidden flaw. But when you aggressively criticize your own industry, or when you willingly admit a hard truth about your own shortcomings, you do the work for them. Those defensive walls drop. Yeah, the audience subconsciously thinks, okay, this person isn't trying to sell me a polished lie. They actually see reality clearly, the exact same way I do.
It flips the dynamic entirely. Instead of saying, we are the tech saviors who have fixed everything, buy our product, Jobs framed Apple as the underdog. He looked at a room full of designers and said, we need help. We really, really need your help.
He transformed them from passive consumers into co-conspirators. By telling them the industry looked like garbage, he gave them a mission. He invited them into the story.
So how do we actually apply this today? Because if you just read those Jobsian techniques off a checklist, you're going to sound like a robot trying to simulate a human personality.
Exactly, which defeats the whole purpose.
Right. So the source material argues that you need a specific mental posture, what it calls the Holy Trinity of intuitive communication.
And the underlying core belief of this posture is simple but profound. It's the idea that reality is always more interesting and significantly less scary than the myth. When you truly internalize that, you stop trying to spin reality. You stop trying to protect people from the truth.
Which leads to the fuel of this entire engine, emotional honesty. This means expressing genuine frustration or genuine wonder.
Right.
If your current product iteration is boring, you have to admit it's boring. If you think society and technology are on a, quote, messy, beautiful first date, you say exactly that.
Because emotional honesty is what proves you have skin in the game. If you are bored by your own pitch, the listener's going to tune out immediately.
Yeah, they can feel it.
Exactly. If you are genuinely annoyed by how broken your industry is, let that leak out into your presentation. That friction is the antidote to the corporate mask.
Then you need the weapon, which the text calls uncompromising clarity. I really love the framing here. Jargon is a failure of imagination used by insecure minds.
That's a powerful line. People hide behind complex words when they don't fully understand what they're talking about, or when they're terrified of being exposed as frauds. Uncompromising clarity means you can explain your highly technical product using dirt-simple physical metaphors. Electrons, gears, water flowing through a pipe. If you can't translate your business into those terms, well, you don't intuitively understand your own business yet.
And finally, you use transparency to build the bridge to the audience.
Yeah.
You pull back the curtain. You admit, like Jobs did, that you just stumbled onto a concept 5 years early rather than pretending you were some psychic genius.
Yes, exactly.
But let me challenge this for a second. If I'm an investor listening to this, or even just a consumer, and every single founder in Silicon Valley starts reading this manifesto, won't radical transparency just become the newest, trendiest corporate mask?
It's a very valid concern.
Right. Like, how are we supposed to distinguish true emotional honesty from manufactured, calculated vulnerability?
You're absolutely right to be skeptical there. If people just treat this as a new PR tactic, it will absolutely become a mask. But this is where the text makes its most fascinating leap. The authors argue that true emotional honesty cannot be manufactured effectively at scale anymore because of the very nature of AI.
Okay, how so?
Well, to prove this, they don't look forward at emerging tech. They leap 2,300 years backward, straight to Aristotle.
Ah, yes, the Aristotelian upgrade for the AI generation. The text argues that this communication style isn't just a neat trick Jobs invented. It's biologically hardwired into how human beings process trust, mapping perfectly to Aristotle's ancient frameworks of persuasion.
Because Aristotle wrote the foundational text on persuasion called rhetoric. He argued that to persuade anyone of anything, you need 3 elements: ethos, pathos, and logos. And the manifesto takes these ancient concepts and maps them flawlessly to the modern Jobsian techniques we just discussed.
Let's ground this for the listener. So in Aristotle's time, ethos was about your character, your reputation in the town square.
Exactly. But in the AI generation, a machine can generate a flawless, polished corporate reputation in seconds. So the text maps ethos directly to transparency.
Okay, I see.
Because exposing your raw, unedited reality, your flaws, your messy, chaotic process is the only undeniable proof left that you possess genuine human character. A machine has no reason to expose a flaw.
Then consider pathos. We usually translate that simply as emotion. But the manifesto maps pathos to emotional honesty, specifically noting that machines can imitate emotion, but they cannot feel actual frustration.
That is the key distinction.
And that completely answers my earlier skepticism about faking it. Because an AI can write a perfectly structured script about being sad or excited, but it doesn't possess the physical friction of living in the world.
Right, it does have a body.
Sharing your real, unfiltered feelings, like a genuine, visceral annoyance that a manufacturing process takes too long, or real awe at a discovery, is how you declare your humanity. Silicon can't synthesize a headache.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, logos. The logic and reason of your argument. That maps to uncompromising clarity. Aristotle believed that simplicity was the ultimate expression of mastery, not a lack of depth. If you understand the mechanics of the universe, you can explain them simply.
And Aristotle would have looked at our modern internet and issued a massive warning. He heavily valued what he called dialectic, the interactive back-and-forth pursuit of truth between people.
Oh, he would have hated the current state of things.
Yeah, he would be completely horrified by our modern artificial monologue.
Because we are drowning in one-way information noise. Aristotle would argue that founders must invite dialogue. Don't just deliver a pretty speech. Ask the room for help. Engage their minds. The text relies heavily on Aristotle's concept of first principles here. Because anyone today can use a basic AI prompt to sound sophisticated. Sophistication itself is completely lost its market value.
Right. When the supply of something is infinite, the price drops to zero.
Exactly. So what holds value? Raw, undeniable, messy reality.
Think about this. Imagine you are pitching your own project to your boss tomorrow. Your natural instinct is to hide the flaws, to use the jargon so you sound smart. But this text suggests your flaws are actually your greatest asset right now.
It's totally counterintuitive.
If AI can write the grammatically flawless pitch, your slightly frustrated, uniquely human perspective is the only proof you have that you are real.
It is a profound shift in how we value human capital. But, a good pitch cannot save a broken company. The manifesto doesn't just stop at communication. It takes this Aristotelian clarity and scales it up to the actual nuts and bolts of running a business.
Right. This is where the ambition of the pitch really shines. They introduce an operational framework called the Triad of Ability: mind, market, and margin.
It's a framework for balance, deeply rooted in Aristotle's belief that virtue always sits at the midpoint between extremes.
Now let's use a visual analogy for the listener here. Imagine this triad like a three-legged stool. The startup marketability, the market, that's one leg. That's your demand, right?
Yes.
The profitability, the margin, is the second leg, making sure the enterprise is actually sustainable. But the AI reasonability, the mind of the founder, that is the third leg.
And arguably the most important.
Because investors usually only look at the market and margin legs. Does people want it and does it make money? But if that mind leg snaps under the immense pressure of startup life, the entire stool topples over. The whole company falls.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. We see it constantly in Silicon Valley, don't we? Burnout, paranoia, toxic corporate culture.
But how does this actually work mechanically? How does AI reasonability protect a founder's mind or cure delusion?
By acting as an emotionless sounding board. Let's say a founder is convinced their new feature is going to change the world, but they're blinded by their own ego.
Happens all the time.
Right. By using AI to stress test their business model against historical market data, the AI forces them to confront the reality of the market. It strips away the founder delusion. It structures their wild intuition into logical steps.
So inner peace isn't being pitched here as some flucky wellness retreat concept. It is being pitched as a hard, non-negotiable business metric. A clear-minded founder creates a balanced, reasonable startup.
And that scales up to the text's wildest claim, which is world peace.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It is. They draw on Aristotle's book, Politics, which argues that peace cannot be forced onto a society from the top down by a king or a government. It has to be built from the bottom up, starting with the individual.
The text literally says, clarity is where inner peace begins. And peace, multiplied across enough founders, doesn't stay contained, it moves outward.
It relies on what Aristotle considered the highest human virtue, phronesis or practical wisdom.
Phronesis.
Right. Practical wisdom isn't meditating on a mountaintop. It's the ability to navigate complex, messy reality without losing your center. When a leader has practical wisdom born of absolute clarity, they do not make decisions out of fear, paranoia, or greed. When a supply chain falls through, they don't panic and exploit their workers. They calmly map contingencies because their mind is clear.
So if the AI supercampus multiplies that effect across thousands of founders in their mentorship network, those ripples naturally start to shift the geopolitical and economic culture. It is bottom-up peace through better business mechanics.
It is incredibly elegant, but it brings us to the ultimate caveat, the core tension of this entire blueprint.
The big question.
Right. If AI is the thing providing all this structural clarity, organizing the market, stress testing the margin, and acting as the governor for our minds, what exactly is the human being's job in the future?
The battle of soul versus silicon. The text addresses this head-on with a warning it attributes to Aristotle. Do not mistake the tool for the soul.
Aristotle separated types of reason. AI possesses what we would call calculative reason. It is extraordinarily good at processing massive amounts of data, recognizing patterns, and structuring arguments.
Better than we'll ever be.
Right. But humans possess intuitive reason, what Aristotle called nous and moral character, ethos.
Which means we really have to talk about the death of the vending machine prompt.
Oh, yes. The way most people use AI right now is a complete disaster.
We totally treat it like a vending machine. You put in a quarter like a generic prompt and you get a generic soulless email or proposal out the bottom. But the unedited dialogue that makes up this manifesto actually models the solution. Throughout the text, the human, Mike, isn't asking the AI to do the thinking for him.
Exactly the opposite. Mike brings the emotional spark. He brings the visceral frustration with the broken startup ecosystem. He brings the intuitive vision for world peace. He provides the nous.
And the AI acts as a clear mirror. It uses its calculative logic to organize that messy human intuition into the Aristotelian framework. The human brings the soul, the friction, and the stakes, and the AI brings the structure.
This dynamic is why publishing the live dialogue itself as the pitch for the $1 million prize is the ultimate Jobsian move.
It's brilliant. They completely collapse the distance between the promise and the reality. They aren't asking for $1 million by saying, give us the money and we will eventually build a campus that facilitates dialectic partnerships with AI.
No, not at all.
They are saying, look at the transcript in your mans. This conversation is the incubator. We are already doing it.
It proves that clarity isn't a pristine, prepackaged corporate statement you buy from a PR firm. Clarity is a gritty, iterative, back-and-forth process of stripping away nonsense until only the essential truth remains.
Think about how you use AI in your daily life. Are you using it to hide? Are you using it to generate that artificial monologue so you sound perfectly polished and totally generic?
A lot of people are.
Yeah, but this text is challenging you to treat it as a dialectic partner. You have to bring your frustration, your intuition, your lived experience, and let the AI help you structure that truth.
Because if you just let the AI generate the content from scratch, you are sacrificing your ethos and your pathos. You are willingly becoming part of the noise that people instinctively tune out.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We started with Steve Jobs standing on a stage, calling computers garbage and dumb, proving that radical candor and emotional honesty are the ultimate tools for building trust by disarming an audience's fear.
We then traced that intuitive posture back 2,300 years to Aristotle's rhetoric, showing how transparency, emotional honesty, and clarity map to ethos, pathos, and logos, and why those human traits are the only things AI cannot synthesize.
We looked at how applying that clarity creates a triad of ability, the stool of mind, market, and margin, where a founder's internal practical wisdom literally becomes the support for a sustainable, world-changing company.
And finally, we saw how treating AI not as a replacement for human thought, but as a structural mirror for human intuition, is the absolute key to surviving the AI generation.
It is a massive blueprint disguised as a simple conversation, but I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked at the very beginning about that overwhelming, flawless, artificial monologue of the modern world.
Right.
If AI completely corners the market on logic, on structure, and on flawless execution, which are the very things we used to highly value and compensate in employees and leaders, what happens next? Will the most highly compensated and sought-after skill of the future simply be the human capacity to be profoundly, genuinely annoyed by how the world currently works?
It completely reframes our relationship with our own flaws.
It really does. If AI can fix the systems and write the code, it still needs a human to point at the system and say, this is broken, this is ugly, this lacks soul. Perhaps your frustration, your messiness, your distinct inability to be a perfect calculating machine, maybe that is actually your ultimate competitive advantage. Keep asking those big questions, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
I'm Mike Hayes, Editor-in-Chief of the AI Super Campus podcast. I generated this dialogue with AI. I edited it, and I approve this message.